Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom continues to dominate the sales charts, and I think that this game is completely out of control when it comes to this specific aspect, and something that people didn't necessarily see going forward. Now, I've discussed Tears of the Kingdom sales, where I think it's going to be, what's happening. I've been giving you guys some update, but I think that this one that we're going to go over is significant because of some of the changes that are going to be happening to Nintendo and also the industry as well. So we're going to talk about that, plus some other stuff with Metroid Prime Remastered. Did it underperform? Could we not see Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 because of that? Well, there's some talk on that, and I wanted to kind of nip this one before it really starts spreading online or anything like that. Plus, we've also got some more information on events upcoming as well for big events, you know, the summer stuff that's happening. Big showcases are happening, so we're going to talk about that. But before we get into any of it, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click the notification bell. I will be announcing the winner of the giveaway for the Tears of the Kingdom Special Edition or Collector's Edition. That will be on the community page, so make sure you look out for that. And we will announce a brand new giveaway upcoming, so probably next week sometime. It might be some eShop credit. We're going to do Pikmin 4 in July as well, so we have a lot of good stuff upcoming. So of course, subscribe, notification bell, all of that good stuff helps out the channel. Now let's go ahead and jump into this Tears of Kingdom out of control stuff, because we do have the latest Gematsu sales charts, and these show some incredibly positive things, in my opinion at least, when it comes to my analysis of the market, what Nintendo's done, where they're going, what's happening. And we followed up on this, I think, last week or so, but the Tears of the Kingdom is still the top-selling game in Japan. It sold another 150,000 units, right about that, 148,482 units in Japan, not including digital. So for the third week in a row, Tears of the Kingdom is by far the runaway best-selling game, outselling any other game, physical at least, by at least 100,000 units. The next best-selling game was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Nintendo Switch, which that game just continues to sell, whether it's bundled or packaged in as a holiday Black Friday deal, or it's a individual game. It just sells. It just sells quite a bit. Every single title in the top 10 was a Nintendo Switch game. Software is king, and I keep on trying to tell people this. A lot of people like to sit there and focus on the hardware sales way too much. And yes, hardware sales are important. You need to make sure that you sell the hardware. But what sells the hardware is the software. If you're selling hardware, but your software isn't selling, then there's definitely an issue with long-term viability in whatever region that you're in. And we're seeing that a little bit with the PlayStation 5. And my concerns earlier, when people were ranting and raving about how the PS5 hardware sales are so good and beating out Switch in Japan, well, it's like, well, the problem is that the software sales aren't very good, so that's not going to last. It's just people that are there available to pick it up since they haven't been able to get one before. So it wasn't something that you can sustain. In order to have those sustained sales, you're going to need that big moving software, and that's what Tears of the Kingdom is doing. It's literally carrying the Nintendo Switch on its back at this point. Not only is it carrying it on its back when it comes to the hardware sales, which we'll talk about in just a bit, but the software as well. Since Tears of the Kingdom came out, not just in Japan, but in multiple different regions, a bunch of other games have jumped back into the top charts when it comes to the evergreen titles, whether it's even Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Animal Crossing, Pokemon games, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon Sword and Shield, whatever the case is. A lot of these games are selling better, and not even at the top. If you look at like the bottom ranges as well, you will see other Nintendo Switch games that came out a year, 2 years ago or whatever, also make it back into the top 30 or sales charts as well. It's affected Amazon too. Amazon, Tears of the Kingdom is still the best-selling game across the board in multiple different countries. A lot of the leading countries, Tears of the Kingdom is still there, despite other big games in terms of pre-orders coming up, right? Diablo 4 is out. Obviously, that's going to be more digital. Game Pass, especially on PC and Xbox. The big thing here is Street Fighter as well. We'll see how that goes. And then, of course, Final Fantasy 16 is coming out. But overall, I think that the big thing here to look at that people aren't accounting for when you look at the analysis is not just the sales numbers with physical, but also the digital. Digital is massive for Tears of the Kingdom. I'm actually kind of shocked at how well digital did, because if you remember, when Nintendo announced the sales for Tears of the Kingdom that it did 3 million in 10 days, 2.2 million of that was in Japan. And we found out that in Japan, the game sold a million plus or so in its first week in Japan. So Nintendo sold a lot of digital copies as well, and that game is still #1 on the eShop in all of the major regions. So do not sleep on the digital consumption of it. So when Nintendo has their next investor press briefing and all that, I think it's going to be August or so for the last 3 months, you should expect to see Tears of the Kingdom, I think, well over 15 million units, maybe even more. We can be looking at 15 to 20 million units for this game because it's just doing phenomenal. And I think that the biggest difference between comparing it to a Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the sales are going to reach up to what Pokemon Sword and Shield did. It's going to surpass it. It's just going to do it on a slower track as the content tends to come out and because the game isn't quite as good in terms of the heavy hitters. The fact that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a much better game overall than Tears of the Kingdom. Very different game, but the reviews and the ratings and what people say, that is going to drive sales longer, in my opinion, over what Pokemon does. Because we saw it with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, how those sales did beat out all of the previous Pokemon games on the Nintendo Switch, and Tears of the Kingdom is blowing out Breath of the Wild when it comes to the initial debut sales, of course, because it has a way bigger install base compared to what Breath of the Wild had when it was selling, because it needed to grow with the Nintendo Switch install base. So this is something that's really just out of control with the Nintendo Switch right now at this point. If you put on a bingo card, or if you predicted that 6 or 7 years later, Switch would still be a top-selling system with the competition coming out and in their prime with a bunch of games releasing like Street Fighter and like Diablo and like all these different games, which I'm sure PS5 and Xbox Series, obviously they're going to be out longer than what the Switch is doing in its prime. But if you would have told me or told anybody, if somebody would have just sat there and said, yeah, Switch is going to be around in its 7th year, going on that 7th year, and it's going to be a top selling system, it's still going to be right up there, it's still going to be outselling systems in various different places, I don't think anybody would have believed you, considering how fast Nintendo drops systems, even when they have great success, like the Nintendo Wii, for example, right? So I think that that's what's crazy about this, and I think that it's going to slow down, right? Because obviously everything slows down, but if you look at the hardware sales, like another 80,000 plus, to be exact, the Nintendo Switch sold 86,524 units in Japan for the past week. That's well more than double than the PlayStation 5, so it's still selling incredibly well. It's still doing really good, and Tears of the Kingdom is pretty much propping up and carrying it on its back. And Pikmin 4 is going to come out as well, so that's going to help too. So it's just one of those things, man. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, how is the system doing this in this year? But I think it's because of the unique nature of the system. Obviously, hybrid nature really does help out. But what are your thoughts on this, guys, when it comes to Tears of the Kingdom and its carrying of the Nintendo Switch, how it's kind of out of control with the sales and everything? It's going really good, and I hope that it continues, and I think that it will, based off the trends that I'm seeing, based off the digital, based off of Amazon, based off of everything that you can track when it comes to drop-offs from week to week and what Nintendo's done in the past. Tears of the Kingdom seems to be outpacing so many other games out there, so we'll see what happens going forward. But what are your thoughts on it? Let me know. But speaking of thoughts, I have a little bit of sour thoughts for a certain tweet that I saw, and also some sentiment that's going out there, but it's also part of a bigger problem that gamers have. I talked about this with another friend of mine of the channel, Benji Sales, who he's also a great content creator. Make sure you guys check him out. He talks about sales numbers and all that. When he talked about Dead Island 2, how the game sold, I think, over 1 million or 2 million units very quickly, and people are like, oh, that's great, but then some people are like, oh, that's terrible compared to whatever, Zelda, or compared to this. And I think that's the biggest issue. People don't understand when it comes to budgets and expectations, and we're seeing that now with Metroid Prime Remastered. So Metroid Prime Remastered was a shadow drop. It just dropped out of nowhere at the last Nintendo Direct, and then the physical came out later. Nintendo wasn't expecting this game to be huge or a massive seller or anything. Heck, they barely had enough physical units to even supply for the stores. So it wasn't like this is a massive budget game or anything like that. Probably had a small number of developers from Retro working on it while they toiled away at Metroid Prime 4, but it was able to sell 1 million units in about a month or so on the market when Nintendo announced the sales as of the end of March 31st. So pretty good, right? Pretty good, 1 million units in sales. It's a $40 game, so they made quite a bit of money off of the game That's 20 years old, 20 plus years old at this point. But there are some opinions out there where some people are saying, oh, well, now we're not going to get Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 because Metroid Prime Remastered didn't do well because it's not selling like Zelda or it's not selling like Pokemon or Splatoon. And I think the biggest problem is that we're comparing a game like Metroid Prime Remastered or Metroid, the franchise, to like Zelda and Pokemon, and it's not going to sell up to that. It's just not going to do that unless they change things dramatically. But that doesn't mean that it's a failure. That doesn't mean that it's not good. A lot of companies have various different products that have different budgets tied into it, that have different expectations, and a game can sell 2 million, 3 million, 4 million and still be successful compared to another game selling 10 million or 20 million and that game also being successful, just more successful than the other game. But when it comes to the video game industry, most companies have a slot, have a revolving door of franchises and their expectations, and it's all making money at the end of the day. 1 million units, $40 per unit. You guys do the math. That's still a lot of money for a game that came out 20 years ago and obviously did not have some type of massive budget behind it. Heck, they didn't change or add any real content to the game. They did change up the graphics. The graphics look a lot better. It's still the same art style and everything, but the graphics are improved, texture work, detail. They did improve a lot of the other stuff, added some controls, but it's not like there's a bunch of new sections to play and a bunch of new features and a bunch of new content like this was a large scale or major development. So 1 million units at that $40 price tag for a game that's 20 years old that they've already resold multiple times with the trilogy and all of that is pretty good. It's actually really good. I'm pretty sure Nintendo's very happy with that, especially since it was a shadow drop. If you can get 1 million plus on a game like that where the original sold about 2.8 million or so, that's really good. So I think that Nintendo's happy with those sales. And we also have to factor this in. Nintendo's not sitting there and waiting on Metroid Prime Remastered sales and saying, okay, well, now we're going to do 2. Oh, well, now we're going to do 3. They probably already had plans to do those. If they were going to do them, they probably already had plans to do it. Because we know that Metroid Prime Remastered was sitting there for a while done and Nintendo held on to it. We've known before that Nintendo has held on to certain games. So it's actually possible that Nintendo is holding on to Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3. Now, there's been varying reports whether those games are actually remastered or not, or just upports. But whatever happens, I don't think it's dependent on them selling 10 million copies of Metroid Prime Remastered or something like that, then all of a sudden Metroid Prime 2 and 3 come out. I think that those games would essentially be fillers for the fans, kind of fill things in as we get towards Metroid Prime 4. So we'll see what Nintendo has for us and what they announce, maybe at a Nintendo Direct or something upcoming. Now, moving over to the last topic here, guys, I just wanted to let you guys know about a few different events that are going to be happening and I will be live streaming. We have the Summer Games Fest that's happening June 8th. I will be covering that on the channel. There will be a big live stream. We'll have a big pre-show, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you guys look out for that. But the Summer Games Fest 2023 showcase is from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. EDT, so Eastern time. So I'll definitely be covering that quite a bit. Make sure you guys convert it out to what time where you live, and of course hit the notification bell, subscribe, all that good stuff if you want to be notified when we go live with that. Also, the Ubisoft Forward event is happening as well. Not next week as of the time that I'm recording this video, but it's going to be the following week right there on that Monday. So it's going to be on June 12th. And the times are 10 a.m. PT, 1 p.m. ET, 6 p.m. in the UK, 7 p.m. in Europe, and there will be a pre-show that I probably will not stream beforehand. We'll just be talking here, and then we'll actually tune in once the actual show starts. We could get new information on Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. That Rayman DLC still needs to come out. I don't know what other DLCs that they have as well. There's also Assassin's Creed Mirage. There's probably going to be that. We also have the Splinter Cell game, right? The remake of Splinter Cell. So we'll see about that as well. So there could be some interesting stuff that Ubisoft is cooking up. We'll see if there's anything from Watch Dogs. We'll see about that. The Division, maybe there's something there. There's quite a bit that Ubisoft could show off here. So what are your thoughts on this, guys, when it comes to everything that we discussed, from The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom to Metroid Prime Remastered and some cool upcoming shows? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell. We will see you for the next video. Peace out.